Hi.
How are ya? I'm gonna put you on speaker view too because I want to look at that face.
Ooh,
Hi.
the clean shaven face,
Oh my God, clean shaven and yellow headed. I love it.
yellow hair, yeah.
So cool. I love it.
Inspired by Jeremy Meek.
I love that you guys are wearing doing the same hair color these days.
I know, I
All the
know.
cool kids are. I'm clearly not a cool kid. Um, so you've done programs with us before. You've done transformational things with us before.
Mhm.
You did a great session with James for the makeup show, and I think Nick was in it, and that was great too. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to do today and how this will be a little different from some of the other stuff that you've done.
Well, usually when I'm doing some of the other, face altering things, I'm doing characters that I have made up myself. So it's in my head, it's a little bit easier because I've done them before. I'm sort of following what I want to do for me. But today is going to be a little different because I'm actually creating someone else that is actually very well known to everybody. So I thought, in honor of this year being an election year and crossing my fingers that she doesn't die before this election year is over, I'm going to transform myself into RBG, Ruth Bader
Oh my
Ginsburg.
God, amazing!
I
That's
think.
not
I
going to
hope.
happen.
I hope.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's just say you're going to transform yourself into an old lady for now, and then we'll see if it looks like RGB.
We'll see. I've got accessories and things, so that helps.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Awesome. So, do you want me to pull up the images to talk through real quick?
Yeah, that would be
Want to do
great.
that first?
That would
Okay,
be
cool.
great. Yeah.
So give me a second, guys, while I don't screw this up. As we know, I am, let me open Joe's thing first.
And so
Okay.
part of like what I've been doing in my quarantine, if any of you have watched, I have a drag character called Mr. Drag, and I started doing a show called Quarantini. And in that show, I was Mr. Drag, who's the first one, I believe, Michael, the
Oh, wait,
top one.
sorry.
There you go. So that's Mr. Drag. And so it would be a show, and I would sort of do a little routine, and I would talk to the camera, and then I would make a cocktail, and then I would sing a song, and it all revolved around a theme. So this is how I usually look for Mr. Drag. And then as I started doing it, I started realizing that I wanted to mix it up a little bit and have a little bit more fun. So I started creating other characters that would then come into the show. And I sometimes would interview them. So this is a character called Aunt Joe, who's based on my Aunt Joe, although she had never had surgery. But my Aunt Joe would wear a full face of makeup and then big dark sunglasses. And so I thought I needed to add that character in. And that's kind of what her hair looked like for as long as I can remember until it became a wig and then it looked just like her hair. And we never quite knew when that transition happened. But this is also when I started working with like altering my face shape, using face tapes, which I was always so scared to use before. And I started experimenting with them, and it really changed a lot of how I was able to restructure my face. So yeah, this is a DJ Helen Hayes. So she's an old DJ. She used to be a stripper, and then she became a DJ, which is a natural progression, I think. She's a little messy. She's as a lot of my characters are drunk. Um, she has a deep, raspy voice because she's also a smoker. And so she's a little crass, and she's really fun to do because I also get to do the like quadruple chins, and so that's always a fun thing to do. And then the next one, this is one of my favorites. This is Jones Lawrence. He thinks that he is like the biggest Broadway star, but he's never actually been on Broadway. He's only been in small theaters in small little towns. But obviously, he's had a lot of plastic surgery. And he was sort of my first foray into doing this sort of plastic surgery makeup and using the face tapes and creating a structure of a face that looked like it was pulled, and like creating texture on the skin so that it looked like fresh baby skin. He had just had his peel, but yet it's slightly off, it's not quite even. So that shows a little bit about who he is as a person. And then this is Tajine Dijon. So she's a world famous singer from Canada, and she's also a chef. And so yeah, so that was basically her. And so I went a little bit of extreme Celine Dion in this when her really sort of emaciated. It was really dark, but the lights that I use sort of smoothed it out a little bit more than it had actually looked. But she's a fun one to do as well. And this is Dolly Dean. So she is actually the daughter of Jimmy Dean, the Sausage King, and Sarah Lee from Pound Cake, Sarah Lee. And so she's Southern. And she has a cooking show that plays to tens of people, and she specializes in cooking things with pork. So everything she makes is with pork because she knows how to handle a sausage. So, and the first time I played her, so she was in 2 different episodes, but the first time I played her, a lot of my friends didn't even know it was me because it was the first time that I had shaved in a long time. So people thought I had gotten someone else to be a guest star on it until they saw my tattoos and realized it was me. So I just wanted to show you those so that you could kind of see how one person can kind of change and how you can change up your look.
I just want to say that's amazing. I mean, I know I'm watching our folks on this session, and they're like on this, like looking at it with their mouth agape. It's amazing to see those shifts and those changes, and I'm super excited for you to share some of those tips on it. I just want to tell you the last one. I thought it was Scotty as Penny Champagne when I first saw it. I was like, oh my God, wait, is that Scotty? It looks like one of Scotty's outfits, but inside joke for everybody. Anyway, all right, back to you, and I'm going to mute myself now.
All right. So if you guys have questions throughout all of this, you can ask. Michael's going to watch the chat because if I don't have my glasses on, I'm not going to be able to see the chat. But if you have questions at any point, just put it in the chat. Michael will come on and ask me. So I already put 3 out of the 4 face tapes on, which is what these things hanging from my head are. And just so that I could be a little bit ahead, I also covered one of my eyebrows so I could be a little bit ahead, at least glued it down. So I am going to start. So this is going to be quite a challenge for me. And I thought I was going to do, like I said, I was going to do one of my characters. And then I thought, well, why not challenge myself in this? And it's always good to put yourself in an uncomfortable position. Maybe not so much when you're teaching, but hey, I kind of like it. So you get 2 parts of, when you get the face tapes, you get 2 parts. There's a shorter part, and they have these sort of little, these little sort of toggles at the end. And you just put them through and the face tapes, and then you stick them on, and you can kind of see, you can't really see it. You need to make sure that your skin is clean. So like a little alcohol on a pad, and you can go over that spot. The best part is that they take makeup, so it's wonderful. So the makeup will cover it up. So you just peel off the backing, and then I've got to make sure this is in the same place. Just stick it on, push it down, and good to go. Now, a lot of people will sort of take theirs at the beginning and put them where they want them to go. So what you do is one side has little holes and the other side has the toggle, and you just sort of pull them as tight as you want. There's different holes, so you can make it tighter. And don't smack yourself in the face like I just did. This is my least favorite part of face tapes, is trying to get in and secure. There we go. So there's one. And then these are my cheeks. So I put them right here just to pull my cheeks back a little bit. So it just pulls that skin up, because I was looking at pictures of her, and I have a bunch of reference pictures of her up in front of me. And she has these amazing cheekbones, but she also has a hollowness in here. So that was something I wanted to get this up so I could get that cheekbone, but then she has a hollow underneath, and then she has the cheekbone, which is really fun. So this eyebrow is covered. I'm going to use Elmer's glue stick, the purple glue stick, to cover this one. You want to go against the direction of the hair. So I go in and then I go down to make sure the hair is covered underneath. And then I kind of do circular motions and go back and forth just to make sure that all of it is covered. The good thing about using the purple glue stick is that when it dries, it's clear, so you know when it's dry. And we'll put a little bit more here. You want to kind of work fast on this because you don't want the glue to dry too much and then it starts to pill up. So I'm using a clean mascara wand and just brushing the hair up so it lies a little bit more flat. If you have really thin, sparse eyebrows, you don't have to do that because I do that so that the hairs don't lay on top of each other. And then I'll do another coat, just brushing up. And then I'll let that dry. So while that's drying, let's cover the other one. So you want to think about color correction, and most eyebrows tend to be a little bit cooler. So I use Danessa Myricks Vision Cream Cover. I love it. I don't usually recommend a liquid when you're covering eyebrows, but this is so lovely and opaque that it works really, really well. I'm actually going to I'll just use my sponge. So I'm using W1, so I'm using a warmer one because I want to get rid of that coolness. And this works nicely if you just kind of push it in. So if you have any spots that might be a little raised or need to fill in, you can. But what I love about the Vision Cream Color cover is that you can get all kinds of coverage with it. You can shear it out, but you can get this full coverage and I can cover my eyebrow. So that's taking away the color of the eyebrow. And then I use a loose powder Ben Nye translucent and just powder over that. And then you can brush it away. Okay, that's still a little tacky, so I'm not going to go into that yet. So I'm going to use a combination of colors. I'm using, got it, glasses. Where are my glasses? I think it's N3 and W2. Because I want a little bit of warmth in there, so that's why I'm using the W, but I'm going to go a little bit more neutral. Mix those together. So while this is drying, I can start working on my face.
Joe, real quick question regarding brow cover from Etsia. What about thicker or bushier brows? Is it the same? Would you use the same technique?
You can. A lot of times with bushier brows, sometimes the glue stick just isn't strong enough. So you can use Pros-Aid, which will be a little bit stronger and help it stay down a little bit more. But definitely with thicker eyebrows, you want to make sure that you brush them up, because the really thick eyebrows, when they start to lay on top of each other, you're never going to get rid of texture unless you hardly have any eyebrows. But if you let the hair lie like it normally lies, it's going to sit on top of the hair underneath it, and then it's going to be even bushier. So it's going to start to break through. So if you comb them up, it alleviates that. But yeah, I would use the Pros-Aid for that because that's a little bit stronger. And it's basically the same technique. You paint the Pros-Aid onto it and then kind of brush it before it dries. So you can see I can go right over the face tapes that I have and it's like they're not even there. I also like this, the Danessa Myricks, because when I'm doing drag, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time working to like cover any kind of stubble that I might have. And this stuff works really, really well. I mean, I'm not super hairy and don't have really dark hair anyway, but I love that, I don't have to do any color correction into here because this will cover it and color correct it. All right, we're pretty dry on that side. So powder it down once it's dry. And brush off the excess. And then I'll go back in with my W1. color correct it. And then I'm gonna just blend out the edges a little bit, just so that you don't, sometimes, especially with the glue, you'll get like a little bit of a weird edge to it. So the more you blend it out, the better. If for some reason your eyebrows, they weren't, you can still see them a lot underneath it, you can go and do this process again. If they're really bad, I would suggest just taking it off and starting over. It's really difficult, if you have a bunch of hairs that are sticking up, to try and get those to stick down without messing up the rest of it. All right. So now it's pretty covered. And go over my ears a little bit because my ears tend to be a lot pinker. And just throw a little bit down onto my neck. I think that's always really important to, when you're doing these things, don't forget about neck, don't forget about ears. A lot of people do. And then you have like a mask of a face. Now that that's all done, when I do drag, I actually go in with some more of the Danessa Myricks foundation and do some highlighting and some contouring. But because what I'm going to be doing with this is a little bit more subtle and a little bit more precise, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave the foundation as is. But I love doing that with drag, is painting in some of the larger highlights and contours with the foundation, because it's, any of you that paint, it's like an underpainting. So a lot of times when you're painting, you'll paint some stuff underneath that eventually will be covered, but that texture and that color will come through the paint that you're painting. So it actually like makes it look a little different. A lot of times trying to get good blacks, instead of using a black, if you use, you put down a little bit of blue and then you go over it with some brown, sometimes makes a much better black than black. So it's sort of that same idea of doing an underpainting and then going over it with your powder contour, and it ends up like you can deepen it a little bit more, excuse me. So now that that's all done, I'm just going to brush off my excess. And here we go. So I'm going to start with my eyebrows. So I'm using this really great Senna palette that I got, I don't even know how many years ago. I love it. I use this for my eyebrows all the time. In my drag eyebrows, even when I'm doing a color, I will draw them in with this first, with some of these neutral colors. It's really sad when you can't see anything without your glasses. You can't see what brush you're trying to grab. I always start with a light color. So what I'm going to do is, so she has a darker hair, like a darker brownish hair. So her eyebrows are darker, obviously, than mine. But I'm going to start with this sort of light middle beigey color and try and get her eyebrows. So I'm just going to look at her pictures. So I'm starting the eyebrows actually almost where mine start, but I'm just bringing it up a little bit higher. So I have hooded eyebrows, which is why I put the face tapes here, so it would pull that up a little bit. So her eyebrows kind of go up at an angle like this. And the reason I'm doing it light is because if I make a mistake, it's a lot easier to correct it. So they go up And then they kind of arch nicely. And then come down. They're a little thicker here. So these are the things that when you're mapping out what you want to do, these are the really important things. Eyebrows are a really great way to start because depending on where you put your eyebrow will frame your entire eye. So sometimes you'll see people do drag and they do this whole eye and then suddenly they've done so much that their eyebrow ends up way up here. And then you look more like a clown. So I always do eyebrows first because that gives me a place to start with for my eye and I can frame the rest of the eye. So I'm just slowly building this up. Yeah, maybe that tail's a little bit too long. Great. So now I'm going to do the other one. And I love how soft these Senna colors are. And I love that you can build up and that, you know, she obviously thinks about all different shades of eyebrows and how you can create texture with the different colors, which is something I love to do, even in my drag eyebrows. And those eyebrows are not even. I've gotten a lot of experience with doing my own makeup though during this quarantine, that's for sure. So my drag makeup actually takes a lot less time now. Okay, one slightly higher than the other. So why don't I fix that? See, this is why I use the light colors because I can just brush that right off. Okay, I'll leave it like that. So now I'm going to go in with a bit of a darker one. I'm going to use this middle one first, then I'm going to go in with the darker one because I don't want to go too dark right away. So yeah, hers are pretty dark and dense. They're thin, but they're dark and dense. So I'm using a really light touch because I don't want there to be too much product on there so that if I'm not happy with it, you know, I can brush it out a little bit easier. I'm also primarily going from a little bit younger version of her, not young, but younger. So I think now her eyebrows might not be so perfect and defined, but now I'm going to go in with the darker and I'm just going to press some of the darker in there. So I'm not trying to make a line. I'm just sort of making it almost like individual hairs. So it has a little bit more texture and starts to look a little bit more real rather than two solid shapes. I also have an eyebrow. We used to have an eyebrow piercing, so there's always this weird little thing that happens over here that I've just gotten used to, where it has like a strange bump that usually messes everything up, but all right, cool. So she doesn't wear a whole lot of makeup. So I'm just going to use a light base color to go all over the eyelid and then up to the brow. I always like to use some sort of base color, neutral base color to go on top of. Then I can use something that's a little bit lighter. And because I also have these hooded brows, what I'm doing is I'm actually going in and going a little higher than my crease and going into my crease. And I'm using a combination of a light beige and a white because I find that that works best on me. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to open up my eye a little bit more. So instead of drawing my crease where my crease is, I'm going to make it slightly higher so that it looks like my eye is open a little bit more than it is. When I first started doing Mr. Drag's makeup and figuring out the style of it, and I finally figured out, how I wanted it to look. One of my eyes is, because I don't use face tapes for Mr. Drag, and one of my eyes is more hooded than the other. So every time I would do the makeup, my eyes always looked a little off. One looked bigger than the other. And so I started accentuating that and making it so that when you look at close-up pictures, it does look like one eye is like open and the other one's like slightly shut. And I thought it's perfect because he's constantly drunk on vodka martinis. So it works. It works for him. And when you're doing these types of makeups, like I'm trying to look like someone, but when you're trying to create a character, like those little things are really, really important. They may be subtle and people may not, quite get what you're doing, but they'll notice something about it that's different. And I think that's really important, doing these sort of quirks in your makeup to make them be a little bit more charactery. So I'm going to use, I love this. This is one of the royal brushes, and it's like super, super pointy, which I love. So I'm just going to use sort of natural color. And so you can see where my crease is and sort of right here, but I'm going to draw it in just slightly above that. And then this is what makes my eye look a little bit more open. And using something like this, like a pencil brush, like a pointy pencil brush is really great because you could see it's like a little bit more of a defined edge here, and then I can blend it up. So the sharper the point, the better for you to be able to get a nice edge. There you go. Just go a little bit more. That's good. Now I'm going to go a little bit darker. And that was a little bit of a warmer color. I'm going to use a cooler color now. I like mixing warmer and cooler colors. Cooler colors tend to recede a little bit more, which is great, than the warmer colors. But by contrasting the two, you can create a little bit more depth. And what I'm trying to do is just build this up a little bit and define it a little bit more. Because if I can put this darker color next to this lighter color, it makes the lighter color pop out a little bit more. And you can see like using very, very little so that I can build up, so that I don't put too much on. This is a much more natural makeup than I'm used to doing. So I want to try and be as subtle as possible with it so that I don't end up making her look like a draggy version of her. I'm trying to get a more realistic, even though it's a heightened version of her, obviously. So I'm going back in with the light and cleaning up that edge. So this is why it's good using these lighter colors, because now I can go in with this light and it kind of cleans up that edge for me. So I still want it to be a little bit darker. There's actually a color in the Senna palette that I'm going to use, that I used on my eyebrows. Just to create a little bit more depth. So to look more shaded in, and like this part is sunken in a little bit more. Cool. Right. She just does a small line. Ooh, this is gonna be, might get real close here. I'm gonna start from the outside. You know what, I need a slightly thinner brush, because this is a little difficult for me to do so far away from a mirror. So just a little line there. Okay. All right. Cool. Now, she has a little bit of a bag underneath her eye, so I'm going to add that in. So I'm going to start with that warmer color. Just make sure I get the shape right. And I'm using that pencil brush again. And creating a little bit of a light bag underneath with that. I'm going to go in with a bit of a darker color. And deeper in here. So just making it deeper, not the whole way across, just in one little place here. Blending that out. And going in with a little bit of my highlight. And a lot of times when you're doing these, it's not necessarily always about putting the highlight right next to where the contour is. If you notice, I did my deepest part here, but then I did my highlight in here because I want this to pop out a little bit more. but it makes this really great illusion that it's actually a little bit more rounded. And this goes a little bit more up in here. So I'm using my lighter color now to go in, connect it in here. Also, she has a little bit of like a pinky color on the inside. So I'm using the lipstick that I'm gonna actually use on my lips because it's a great natural color. And I'm just gonna add that color right in here. Because especially as you get older too, you know, the part around the eyes tends to get a little bit pinkier. And so that adds that. I'm also gonna do just a little bit here as well. In the outer corner.
Did you have a question from, it was from Tammy.
Yes.
No, sorry, that wasn't Tammy, it was from Kit. What is your best tip for doing makeup without glasses, since you're doing that right now? Any tips?
Ooh, well, you can get a magnifying mirror. That always helps. But I always find if I can actually get up to the mirror, like for precision stuff, I have to get much closer to the mirror. But most of the time I can do it from far away and it actually works really well for me. But anytime I have to do precision stuff, I have to get close to the mirror. My eyesight's not horrible, so I can just use like a regular, like I have this mirror off to the side so that I can look in that if I need to and fix anything that I need to fix. Like I just saw some of the liner from above got transferred below. I'm just going to cover that with a little foundation. But yeah, that's the only thing. You just find what works for you. I know a lot of people will use, they'll use magnifying mirrors and that tends to work really well for them. Luckily I'm not at that point yet. I'm sure soon I will be though. I'm gonna start working on the nose. So I have this contour palette from MAC and I use that as sort of as a base. Now she has a much wider nose than I am, so I have to put my contour a little bit lower on the sides. So this is where I would normally contour, and you can see I'm coming down a little bit. Again, doing it really softly so that if I mess up, I'm able to fix it. And then it comes in. A little bit here. Her nose is also longer down here, so I'm kind of bringing it underneath so that I can highlight there and make it look like it's a little bit longer. And these are all things that I learned in college. That's actually the only makeup class, like course I took, was makeup for theater in college, and James and I both took it. And you know, we learned so much in that class because it was old school theater, so it was like packing this stuff on, and but it really taught us like how to contour and highlight. She also has some nasolabial folds, so let's do those. Again, this is just a fluffy angle and very lightly, just so I can get it where I want it to go and start to build up. And again, if I'm looking at a picture of her and it's really deep in here and then it kind of blends up into her cheek. So that's what I'm trying to do, is blend it up like this to create that shape, to create that curve that's happening. So now I'm gonna go, I like where this contour is going, so I'm gonna deepen it a little bit. And I'm using the same, actually the same color, just adding a little bit more. See, it's hard to see with her too because she always has glasses on, so makes it a little difficult. Go in with a little highlight. And I always move back and forth. I'll see things, then I'll be like, oh, wait, gotta change that. And I like to do that while I'm thinking of it, because sometimes I'll forget as I'm going along because I'm trying to do so much that I won't remember that, oh, I need to fix that highlight there. So I'm gonna highlight here. And I'm gonna highlight, get this right. Here. So my nose can start to look like it's a little bit longer, and then just blend it up. I'm not connecting these two because I don't want it to look like a stripe down the middle of my face. She also has a little bit of these going on. One is much subtler than the other, so I'm just gonna blend those out a little bit. And then this one is a little deeper. I went a little low with that, so I'm gonna fix that by making it fit make the eyebrow fit it. Rather than try and get that off. So yeah, I went a little low with it here. So I'm bringing the eyebrow in a little bit more, which will work fine. So I just need to bring it in a little bit more on here. And I'm just using the existing color that's already in the eyebrow. I'm not trying to add any more. All right. Whew, okay, now comes the hard part. Oh, I still have to do needs a labial folds, okay. So again, when you're doing these contours, you don't think about you have to do the entire line of the contour. You just want to do it where you want the deepest parts to be. So sometimes that's here, sometimes it's here, sometimes it's in a couple of places. Because when you start to do the whole thing and start to darken the whole thing, it stops looking realistic and it starts to look like you've just drawn lines on your face. And I'm going to go in with that warm color, the first color I used in my crease, and I'm going to add some of that here. So it starts to make it look even more curved. Not sure if you can see with this light, but and then I can add a little bit here. And what this is doing is this is pulling this, so it's starting to look like a rounder shape, but I don't actually have to go in with my dark to do that because it's starting to create that shape on its own. And I love doing stuff like this because for me, this is like painting. So it's really, really fun. Let's see. She also has a little bit of this. So right in there. Okay. So now I'm going to go in and start working on my cheeks. So let's see. So it was good that I kind of did this because I can see where one of them needs to be. So hers is a little further, goes a little further, what's this? Vertical. Goes a little further vertical than mine does. You can kind of see how mine sort of comes down like this and hers is going to come down like this. So I'm going to go back to that MAC palette and use a fluffy brush. Actually, I think I have a better one than this. Yeah. So another royal brush. And do, make sure I get this right, kind of comes straight across. And then down. And let's see if I can get this side. So straight across, down. Actually, I think it needs to be a little higher. This is the tough part about when you try to transform your face into someone else's. You know, their shape isn't the same as your shape. The space that they have isn't the same amount of space that you have on your face. So trying to figure out where these things need to go. She also comes in, this comes in, it's a little strong. So I'm going to add some of that contour in here to create that. I also have a face chart that I'm looking at, so I made a face chart up of what her makeup would be like, just a sketch, not a fancy face chart, but just so I can see where things are placed. Because sometimes looking at the picture, you see one thing and then, you know, and then trying to figure out where it's going to go in relation to the other things on your face doesn't always work, but with the face chart, it works really well. So she also has, so she has this contour, but then she also has a bit of a contour that comes here. So see how I made that roundness there? It's almost as if we're going to connect these, but we're not. But it's going to fool the eye into thinking that they're connected. So with this, also thinking, you know, it's old age, so skin tends to sag and go down. So like, you know, if it had been earlier days, maybe her cheeks would have been up here and the shading would have been a little higher, but now it's pulling down a little bit. So I'm going to go in now with a little bit of my darker, just to create a little bit of depth. In some of this. And I'm being more subtle than usual because I want this to look a little bit more realistic. She also has a very square jaw. So I'm going to come down. Using the light color again. Yeah. She also has a bit of a jowl, so I'm going to make a little curve there. I'm going to go a little bit onto the my chin, straight across. Now darkening it in. Now I'm going to work with my highlights. So just a little bit across here. And blended, so it gives more of the illusion of going across. And stick this in here to create that jowl. And then, let's see, yeah. So this, putting in the highlight in between these two and adding a little bit to the cheekbone. And adding the highlight in here. And I think we need just a little bit in here to accentuate that a little bit more, that squareness. Cool. So she also has a little bit of this going on. So her chin, even though it's a little bit square, kind of protrudes a little bit. So this is going to help that happen. And then I think I'm just going to add a little bit more highlight down here, just in the center, to sort of bring that out. A little bit of highlight here. And I'm going in with the darker and darkening in closer to the hairline. I'm liking where this is going. So I'm going to do a little bit of blush on her to try and get a little bit more of her look. And sometimes when you do this, you'll lose some of your highlights. So you just have to decide which was more important. You know, do you want to have that highlight there, or do you need to get that color in there? When you're doing these makeups too, one of the things that's really important to think about as well is your lighting. what is your lighting going to be? Like, are you taking photos? Are you doing a video? Is this for Instagram? You know, because, you know, when I started doing the Quarantini, I was using one ring light, straightforward. That was it. I used the microphone on the camera, and that was it on my phone. And then as I started to watch it, I was like, okay, I can do better than this. And so I ended up then starting to use other lights. And because I have a theater background, I understand lighting really well. So I had a warm on one side and a cool on one side. So as you start to watch the later episodes, you can always see that that is always happening. There's this like warm sort of um, pinky peachy color on one side, and then there's like this cold blue that comes in from the other side. And so I have a bunch of different gels that I put over the lights. You know, and DJ Helen Hayes, because she lives in Berlin, and DJs, she always had sort of a reddish light on her when she was at her place in Berlin. So, you know, that's something to really think about as well. Like, what are you doing? How are you doing this? Where is this person? You know, where do they live? What's their environment like? So I'm gonna do, I feel like I need a little bit more highlight here. Yeah. Now I'm just going to add a few little highlights here and there just to accentuate some of what I already did. Luckily, she's like me and doesn't really have lashes. So I just have to use my own with a little bit of mascara. All right. Next, lip. So I have a little bit of a smaller top lip than she does, which is why I went over all my lips with the foundation so that I could then draw them in however I wanted to. She also has a little bit more of a rounder lip.
Hey, Joe, while you're doing that, quick
Yeah.
question, just a point. Can you, if you're working from a reference photo, can you show that at the end?
Mm-hmm. I
Great.
actually have 3 up of her.
Awesome. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And we're just at about an hour, just so you have a time check.
Yep. Thank you. So one of the pictures that I got was in black and white because it's really good to use black and white photos sometimes because you can see the depth a little bit more. And then I have two color photos as well that I used. So this color on my lips is the same color that I used for the pink around my eyes. So it was a little too light, but I like the effect that it's giving. And last part. So she obviously doesn't have neon yellow hair. So I I'm going to use my Temp 2 and see if I can color in my hair brown. If not, I have alternatives. This brown may be too light, but it's giving me a good hairline. Yeah, this, unfortunately, I don't have a darker brown, so this is going to be a little too light for this. So, an alternative. So I'm going to use my Makeup Forever palette and use the brown that's in there. Even this is a little too light, but what I'll do is I'll go back in with some black and kind of darken it up a little bit. So normally when I do these kinds of things, you know, I'll get a wig that works for it. And I have a bunch of wigs here at my house, so I can pull from a bunch, but I sadly do not have a long brown one. And of course, I would happen to have neon yellow hair, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. So let me grab some of the black so I can darken that up. And this works really well. The Ben Nye makes a, I don't know what the hell these are called. They make these, which also work really well if you want to paint in your hair. I use it all the time for my beard. Okay, almost done. Because let's do her a little bit older. So throw in some gray. And then of course, because we need to get the full look, now, I don't have a judge's robe, sadly, which also surprising that I don't have a judge's robe, but I've got something almost as good. And then of course, the glasses. So there you go.
That is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
This is also made out of paper because who knew I didn't have any kind of white lace doily type of thing.
It makes me think of the paper snowmen we make it at the holidays with the
Oh,
kids.
it is. It's actually how you make snowflakes.
Oh my God, amazing.
My dad taught me when I was a kid how to make them. So
That is incredible. Absolutely amazing. And just the only, there's not a question. There's just lots of nailed it. Yeses. Yes, yes, yes. Love it. Amazing.
so this is the black and white that I'm going from.
Awesome.
And then I have the two color ones that I'm going for was this one. So I liked this one because I could see the cheeks a little bit more on this. And then this one because it was a little straightforward, because most of the time she took pictures like this. They're always at an angle, so you never quite get it. And then so I needed a little straightforward one for it. But yeah, you know, and then now looking at it, like now I would start to go in and start to like perfect some things. Like I would probably make some stuff a little deeper. I would kind of fix this because I'm not quite happy with the way that this came out. I think this needs to be a little straighter. So I would go in maybe with some foundation and kind of straighten that. I don't know if I can do that now, but like just kind of straighten that out a little bit. You know, just so it starts to create, and maybe bring this up a little bit higher here just to sort of create that shape because it's going a little bit too angular for what I would like it to be. But yeah.
I think it's amazing. I think if when you look back, when I was looking through the images as we were going through those together, also, one thing I want to really call out, I think we are so trained as an industry to blend, 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 not to see the line, not to see the line. It's really the opposite in a lot of this sort of transformational makeup, because if you blend too much, you're not going to see that angle as much. You're not going to see the way that it cuts in. The cheek, you're right, our left-hand side of the screen is just incredible. Like it really just like when I caught that glimpse looking into the camera, I was like, wow, it just really does hollow out the cheek. And it's just such an amazing skill set to have. And again, this is, you know, whether someone's trying to transform you know, from a drag standpoint or a character creation standpoint, it really does. The techniques that you took us through, the face tapes especially, those are used. So many celebrities we know have those on. All of our friends in Hollywood and LA and the film and TV industry, they know how to do those without thinking about it because so many of their clients use those. So
Well, also like if I let them go, you can kind of see how all of that just sort of fell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the eyebrows are still angled, so of course they're gonna still look like that. But then look at the differences when I pull up onto it and then hook it into place. You know, you get a much more defined look with it.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, I hope you have a hot date tonight.
Are you kidding? One, I never have a hot date in Greenfield, so there's that. But two, we're still in quarantine. I can't go out.
I know it's just the worst. We have these great makeups and you can't go show them off anywhere.
I know.
Well, luckily we have a group that are super appreciative. We had about 100 people on today and so much great accolades for you. And thank you so much for doing this for us.
Oh, you're welcome.
I want to always say thank you to Joe. You're just amazing. And I'm excited. We're going to regroup, me and you, Joe, about the session that we're going to be doing later on this year for Industry Intensive Stage and Screen. That's going to be awesome too. Guys, thank you again for being here. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, our sponsors. Scandinavia. I know Deb Millie is with us. I just saw her say, "You're amazing, Joe." So we know
yeah, and I didn't even say that because I totally did this primer spray before we got on too, because I use the primer spray all the time, and I use the fixer spray when I use drag, and then I use the remover spray to get, and it like takes everything off super quick. So this will take me like 2 minutes to get off, even the eyebrow coverage.
Yay. See, well, Deb, there you go, right? We didn't even, that wasn't even intentional. Scandinavia, The Makeup Light, Cinema Secrets, Temp 2, Senna, Royal Atlantical. Thank you guys for your support. Thank you, Joe, for being here. Next up for the Powder Group, guys, we have Monday, we have Auralis Flores doing a executive
Yay.
hair session for the styling sessions. And then next week, our TPG Summer School finale is going to be with Aga Rhodes and our heart, Sarah Regano, doing a cool wellness session for us to wrap up TPG Summer School. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Bethany, who's still on with us, for a great color theory session. We love you. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys both for today. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.